Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate this. The best part about owning a shirt company is you can dress casual, and at every event you go to get away with it. So, everyone always says this is a great time to be a friar. How many times have you heard that? But really, every year it does seem to get better, and I notice it in all of the business meetings that I have. And when people say, "Where'd you go to school?" You say Providence. Every year there's more interest. It used to be like, "Oh, okay," and they would go on, "Oh, it's a nice school," and now it's immediately talking about the basketball program, talking about their kids wanting to go here, talking about how hard it is to get in here. All these great things, and it seems to just be getting better and better. So you should be very excited as you go out there into the real world that they're going to have respect for you right when they meet you, and that should give you confidence. I know when I was your age, as I was thinking back, as this was here when I was here, and the last thing I'd probably want to be doing on a Monday night is listening to some old 45-year-old guy talk about post-college, which at the time, when I was in your shoes, it was not that exciting. But what you learn is that, you're really a kid, let's say you're 12, 13, so you have 7 or 8 years where you're an adult. You're not really an adult at 14, 15, but kind of. Where you're not working. And then you have 50 years, 40, 60, 70, where you're working, or where you're in your post-college life, beginning your career, or going through your career. And believe it or not, it's more exciting than it was in college. And I loved college. I loved having beers, loved hanging out with my friends. But finding your passion and finding something that excites you, the chase is just incredible. It's so motivating. So hopefully you can listen to I'll bore you a little bit with my story and then give you a few points that I think you can take with you. And hopefully you leave here a little bit more excited about going into the real world. I know some of you guys are juniors. Because if you find something you do love, it's a lot of fun, and it gets you up in the morning. And in some cases, the reason I started a second company is you just want more of it. You want to be working even harder. So when I was your age, I was looking for a job. I was scared. I didn't know what to do, where to go. My dad was a doctor. In the old days, it seemed, as he used to tell me, as you became a lawyer, became a doctor, there were only so many career paths. Now we're faced with thousands and thousands of jobs. I had my first interview over here, right around the corner, and the guy asked me a question, and he stopped the interview because you could hear my heart beating. He literally said, "You can't continue this. I can hear your heart." So I left and called my dad. I was like, "I'm not going to make it. I don't know what to do. I can't interview. Everyone's smarter than me. I was never the smartest guy." But this is when I leaned back on everything that I learned being a student athlete. And I remember I developed this kind of pitch that I would go into these interviews with, talking about what I learned, my persistence, my resilience. I used to use the word resilience 10 times in an interview. How hardworking I was. And I started to convince myself that I was going to outwork all of these smarter people out there looking for jobs. My dedication, my passion, everything that you guys do every day out there on the field, or the court, or the pool. And it really started to give me confidence as I began my journey to looking for a job. My story, very long story short, because I know it's late, getting late. I didn't know what I wanted to do, went into selling pharmaceutical sales. In my mind, you can make decent money, and I could give myself time to think about what I really want to do, as opposed to going into finance, where you're at the desk at 7, home at 8. So the lesson there is that I was kind of really thinking through what I kind of wanted my path to be. You don't have to go out there tomorrow and get the job that you're going to be at for the rest of your life. I really started my current career when I was 31, so you have plenty of time. You shouldn't be worried about it, but you should be strategic as much as you can be. I then went into medical sales. Now at that time I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. For those of you who want to be an entrepreneur, unfortunately you can't just be an entrepreneur. It's not like I want to go into finance, I want to be an entrepreneur. you have to have an idea. So you have to continue your career while you're thinking about how you can become an entrepreneur. So I went and sold medical equipment with GE Healthcare. And in my mind, my next path was to try to get into a graduate program to keep going, assuming I wasn't going to think of an idea. Along the way, I came up with 15 of some of the worst ideas you can possibly imagine that went nowhere. So I continued, in medical sales. Went to Columbia Business School and graduated, was 30 or maybe 29, and kind of gave up in my mind on being an entrepreneur. So I went and interviewed at hedge funds, which is what everyone in New York City does. And the market collapsed, luckily, because I was going to go start from the beginning as some trader, which I don't think I really ever wanted to do. It was just the next step for me. And it collapsed, so I needed a shorter shirt, and that was my only idea. And you should have seen when I told my dad that that's what I wanted to do, and met with his friends trying to raise money that I was making a shorter shirt. And he'd say, "That's it?" I was like, "Yes, you don't understand. It's very needed." And I was worried that, I said, why isn't it done? There must be a reason why J. Crew's not doing it, why Brooks Brothers not doing it. And I said, you know what, I've run out of options, I'm gonna give it a try. So I went up to the Fashion District in New York City, and I literally wandered the streets, knocking on people's doors, going up into the rooms, asking them if they could make me the one shirt that fit me. And I realized how complex the process was, but I was moving the ball forward. I brought on my partner, who I went to Columbia Business School with, and we put together a pitch. We raised some money, and we made some of the worst shirts that have ever been made. Buttons fell off. It was like people would write, I used it for wash my car. Because we were learning, we were learning as we went. We were learning how to market on Facebook. I was learning how to do finance, all these different things. But I knew I had a great idea, because the passion, when you run into someone who said, I wish I came up with that idea, they'd say it over and over again. So we perfected the shirt, and we decided to market for the first time in 2014, and we sold out of shirts that year. Fast forward, we opened our first store in 2015 in Soho, and opened 90 more in 2 years after that. So the idea resonated, we got it right, and I was about to sell the company in 2019, February. There were 20 bids coming in, February 27th. And then Corona happened, or COVID happened, and about 3 weeks after that, we almost went bankrupt. So the reason I'm telling you all this is that the amount of ups and downs you're going to go through is just incredible. I was talking to Steve about that today. It's right when you think something's going good, it goes bad. You just have to know that it's going to happen. I always say it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back in the world of entrepreneurialism, and probably in the world of most early jobs that you take. So we fought through the bankruptcy, and last year we had our best year ever, and once again we're looking to sell, and now inflation's at the highest it's ever been, interest rates are high, there's now a war, there's an election coming up, so we now have to hunker down again. So here I am 12 years later with some success, but still haven't sold the business, and I'm still battling, right? I started Greatness Wins because I was kind of bored during the pandemic, because Untuckit was a little bit slow, and I figured I would hedge myself for the next pandemic with more athletic gear and athleisure wear. So I linked up with, at the time, Derek Jeter, Wayne Gretzky, and Misty Copeland, and I wanted to create the next great athletic brand, basically Nike, but better quality, higher quality, and we launched about 1.5 years ago. We just launched our women's line, and it's been great so far. Tell your dads about it. You guys also buy some. So I want to give you a few things that I wish I knew when I was your age. And let's see here. The first one is that you have to leverage being an athlete. You probably know that. I started off with that, but it's so important. People are impressed by student athletes. I'm impressed by them when they come in and interview at Untuckit. You guys have done a lot of things that others have not done, and you're think in a certain way, the way I thought, and the way, kind of the way an entrepreneur thinks, but you have the dedication, the hard work, the resilience, all these different things. So make sure you play that to your advantage and work that into all your interview questions right off the bat about what you learned being an athlete that you think is going to benefit you in your future job. Don't expect to know what you want to do today, in a year, in 3 years. This world is constantly changing. The jobs that, I didn't tell everyone this, but the jobs that I think are some of the best jobs in the world today, doing e-commerce work, marketing, paid social, paid marketing, where you can just do incredibly well because there aren't that many people who are great at it because it only has been around for 12 years. So for us to find these guys is almost impossible. So don't think, oh my gosh, I have to think about going into finance and that's it. Because that's not the way it works. You can switch your career path 4, 5, 6 times, which is why networking is so important, meeting people. Everyone you meet, have a conversation with them who's older than you and who's in a career path. Write it down, go home, research the job. I always tell young people, my town to come and speak to me to go study on their own what it means to be great at paid social, then go interview. Like if someone came into my office and said, I know how to do paid social because of this, this, and this, I'd be impressed. So you can self-teach yourself now because of the internet. There's just so many different things you can do now that you couldn't used to do. Always have a plan. You don't have to be worried, you don't have to know where you're going, but always strategically think about it. You're going into finance now because you want to test it out. Then you're going to go here, then you're going to go there, or whatever it may be. Don't do something, if you want to go to Europe for a year, go to Europe for a year, right? Your parents probably will tell you not to, but it's, to me, some of my best friends, most successful, went to Europe for a year. They went to Vail, Colorado for 6 months, as long as they had a plan while they were doing it, what they're going to do next, because you're going to have to explain that plan to the future people you're interviewing with. All your success is not going to depend on just pure intelligence. For me, as I've said to my dad a million times, I was never the smartest guy. And I knew that, and I knew I had to work harder than others. But don't let that scare you. You're going to meet a lot of people who are smart out there. You're going to meet a lot of people who think they're smart, probably more of them. But don't let that, just be more prepared than they are, work harder than they are. If you are going to become an entrepreneur, or if that's something you want to do, and feel free to reach out to me however you'd like to. I'd love to talk to you about it. But it's not a career path. It's something that you have to put on the side as you work through your career and think of an idea. You need an idea in order to be an entrepreneur. A few things that I wish I knew, not even when I was in college, but when I started this Untuckit journey, is that there's nothing like the climb to success. It's not about the success. I'll never forget, my wife was sitting across from me in the kitchen, and I sold part of the company, and the money was in the bank account. And she's like, you don't look any happier. She thinks I always look unhappy, but she's like, you don't look, why don't you look happy? I said, it's kind of weird. I said, I'm not any happier. But what I'm happy about, I was thinking back to those moments when I opened my first store, when I was on a plane with Wayne Gretzky, when I was, these random events, when Brooks Brothers and every other brand copied us. And that's when I was my happiest. So understand that. And luckily, when COVID hit, people always ask me, I just bought a house. I didn't tell anyone in my family that we were about to go bankrupt. It was hard to believe. We had just had the biggest year of any retail brand from a growth perspective. And I never got upset about it because in my mind I was like, this is going to add to this journey, this story that one day I'll hope to tell. This is going to be a battle. And it almost excited me that we were going to overcome this. Other companies were not in certain scenarios, and I was going to find a way to. That's kind of how I motivated myself. You hear it all the time that pain and failure leads to success, and I've going through COVID, me and millions of other people who've had businesses that stay alive. You really realize that that's when you learn the most, and that's when you it makes everything after that fact worth it. So the jobs you don't get, the interviews you get told to leave, all these different things that happen, you gotta go home and get excited by it, pumped by it, go back to working, just like being an athlete. I say this because young people tend to do it, and I did, and don't chase money. Don't do things for money. It doesn't matter. It's not going to make you happy. I can tell you for a fact now, that's not going to be what makes you happy. Yes, everyone wants money. It makes you sleep better at night. You have a family, but don't make that your number one goal, because you won't succeed if you do that. It's funny, Mark said this, and I have it written down here. I actually wrote, being humble is the most important lesson I can teach. Be very grateful to anyone you meet along the way. And the humble thing is so important. It's the number one thing I try to teach my young, non-humble 6-year-old every day. It just means everything, and the people who want to help you are going to know whether meaning people will want to help you if you come across humble. The second you become sounding arrogant, you want to be confident, but there's a big difference. Arrogance, people won't want to help you, so be as humble as you can along the way, even when you achieve success. I just want to emphasize these, and this is something I'm learning as we go on. I'm 45, I feel very old to you guys, but that's not that old. And it's just amazing the amount of highs. Steve, I'm sure you could speak to this after your last year, but the highs and lows in life are just so dramatic. It's just incredible, whether it's a sickness, a family member, a job, a war, a COVID. Just watch the news, it's incredible. So those lows, you just have to accept them and wait for them to pass and move on to the highs. And that's going to happen in your career. Throughout your entire career, every single one of you sitting here is going to have 10 terrible lows, even if you end up being the CEO of Goldman Sachs, more than 10. And so you just don't let that bother you. Just, learn from it. This might sound like a strange one, but something that I've come across and probably was guilty of many times is, as you're going through your career, don't be jealous of your friends. They're going to get better jobs than you. You're going to get your buddy who calls you up celebrating because he's got the greatest job ever at Goldman Sachs, or I keep using them as an example. Don't get jealous. Just use it as motivation. I used to use it as motivation. You want your friends to do great. Don't let that, and it's a bigger problem is I've watched my friends, get jealous about career success from their friends. Try to avoid that. You'll be much happier. I think the best advice I actually got it from my dad during the pandemic, is to control the controllables. That is as important as it got, because at one point I was doing everything right with COVID and we were still going bankrupt, and I said, what am I supposed to do? This virus is never going to end, and it's going to end Untuckit. And he said, stop wasting time on that. You can't control that. Control how you're going to avoid going bankrupt, and just think about that. And in this world, it's probably more relevant than it's ever been. You can see something I've said over and over again is kind of this: work hard, you're going to fail. I always say work hard, fail, work hard, fail, work hard, fail. It sounds weird to keep talking about failure when you should be thinking about success, but to me as a young person, I wish someone had said, you're going to fail, you're going to have lows, all these different things, because if I knew it, if I knew how many steps back I was going to take through the Untuckit process, I would have enjoyed it, because now I'm doing it with the Greatness Wins process, and my partner is calling me, he's like, oh my gosh, you were right, this is horrible, this is impossible, And I just laughed. I said, it's going to make it worth it. We're going to learn, and we're going to succeed. The last thing I want to mention, only because it's something very close to me, is about mental health, anxiety, depression, something that I've kind of fought through my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but later in my life, actually, when I was 30, when everything was going great. And I graduated Columbia Business School, and all of a sudden I was hit with a panic attack, having no idea why it happened. And back then, I had to hide it. I couldn't tell anyone. No one admitted it. The doctors even said, oh, it's something else. Today, luckily, we're making that change, and I know they're doing a great job here at Providence. It could inflict all of you guys here, right? Just don't hide from it. Don't be ashamed of it. Just work is stressful. Just go get the help you need, whatever help that is. It might be exercising, might be meditating, might be getting actual help. But don't say, I'm not the type of person who could get that, because it just doesn't work that way. It's like any other sickness, you can't control it. but don't be ashamed of it. And obviously, I'm sure you all, if you haven't been inflicted with some type of anxiety, or you have friends or family. So I think it's important as you begin this career path, there's going to be a lot of anxiety, especially around the career path. And just kind of do what you got to do to overcome it. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. Anytime you guys have questions, need advice, Steve's got my email. I have no problem with you guys emailing me directly. Always happy to help a friar. And I wish you all the best of luck.